All right. Here's some interesting information that I've been thinking on for a while, and I keep adding to it, and I'm just going to put it out into the atmosphere and see where it goes, because it needs to be in somebody else's brain besides mine for us to figure out what it all means, if it's connected, if there's more to it. And I have never been a gatekeeper. I am someone who opens the gate for others and then shuts it if there's no one coming in after that, because that's just how my brain works. So there's a woman by the name of Annie Farmer, a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, who did a podcast interview, and someone uploaded some clips of that on this app. I caught one and found it a curious just piece of memory, because it really helped me clarify something that has bugged me for a long time, and that's the death of Princess Diana. I never bought the paparazzi killed her, because it just seemed like a huge distraction when there was so much going on in her personal life involving the people who control a whole lot of property on the earth, right? And so in the clip, Annie Farmer said that Ghislaine Maxwell showed her a photo album, and it was called, she called it The Royals. And there was a photo of the former Duchess Ferguson and Ghislaine Maxwell, and they were laughing and pointing at a Princess Diana curled up in the corner. And so my first thought was, who took the photo? Because if you're laughing, you're not the one behind the camera. And then my second thought was, this photo clearly had to be in the late 80s or early 90s, right? So one of the things, and Mean Girls suck, that was the other thought too. So one of the things that I don't really hear talked about a lot, we all know who Dodi Fayed, which was who Princess Diana was engaged to. We know who his dad is. We don't really know a lot about him, but they talked about his dad. You know, he owned Harrods in the UK with his brother, which, if you don't know, it was a very old building. And I do believe, if I recall correctly, they had storage vaults in the basement, like where people would store stuff, right? Like important papers, kind of like there's a name for it in a bank. Anywho, his mother, Dodi Fayed's mother, was a woman. I'm going to forget her first name, her last name, and I'm probably not going to pronounce it right, so forgive me, but it's Khashoggi. And Khashoggi is interesting if you know anything about the alternative theories of the Mandalay Bay mass event in 2017 at the Jason Aldean concert. A lot of people have speculated, who are way better at putting computer stuff in the computer, like for others to disseminate. There's like a whole website dedicated to this. A lot of people have speculated that the gunman and gun deal and wanting to end it all and take as many people with him theories are just garbage. There are even multiple reports of individuals seeing two let's call them special operator looking helicopters landing on the top of Mandalay Bay. And many may not know, because I didn't, but on top of Mandalay Bay is a second casino for the, billionaire elite people. And it is rumored that Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS as he is known, from Saudi Arabia, the House of Saud, that an attempt was made on his life. Now, this is my theory. And that is depending upon this information indeed being accurate. I don't think Donald Trump would have let that happen, and he was president. And so I think that he likely played a role. If this was indeed what was going on, he played a role in preventing it. Now, when you look into Saudi Arabia and what has occurred since 2017, you'll see some interesting things. You'll see that two of the top individuals in the House Saud are now on what's called detention, and Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, is now the prime minister underneath his, I believe it's his father. Don't quote me on that, though. Now, a year later, a gentleman by the name, a journalist, and I'm not going to remember his first name, but his last name is Khashoggi, the same last name as Dodi Fayed's mother, was kidnapped on camera from the Turkish embassy, an embassy in Turkey, and was unalived, dismembered, and returned in a box and left on the doorsteps of the embassy. Now, the narrative pushed to the media was that, through the media, I should say, is that the House of Saudi Arabia, the leading family of Saudi Arabia, was responsible. I don't think they were. Maybe the two guys that are now in detention, but not the people who are currently ruling it. And then we have the jet that was presented by Qatar to President Trump upon his return to office in 2021. And now there's a whole lot of noise regarding that, a lot of speculation. But what if the jet was a gift from Qatar and Saudi Arabia from preventing the assassination of Prince MBS? And what if that jet also, this is highly speculative, but what if that jet also, on its way to the United States, brought some individuals that, when we pulled out of Afghanistan in 2018, there were a lot of Afghanistans who were working with individuals from our government and other governments doing the right thing, who were just cut off, that we had made promises that we didn't fulfill. We know, like Abbey, we know all of that, right? Well, we may not, but I encourage you to go do some research on all that. So what if that plane was filled with people who we had made promises to people who still maintain that connection with them, and we brought them over here like we had said we would do, keeping our word, right? Now, I'm going to just upload some receipts showing that I'm not just making all this up in my head. I think there's a global shift going on, and I think we are no longer aligning with money-hungry individuals. I think we're aligning with people who want to do what's right. Even if historically we have been told they are the enemy, God says you'll know them by their fruit, right? And we have to be mindful that Abraham had multiple children, and we're all under the covenant God made with God, not with Abraham, but God made this covenant with God. And no matter what name you put on him, if you worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the other children that have been sown by Abraham with his wife Keturah, with Hagar, who was Egyptian, if I recall correctly, if you're walking with God and doing the right thing, then you're good. Now, who am I to say you got to call him what I call him, right? He'll know you by your fruit. So we're living in amazingly interesting times. And I just wanted to put all this out in the universe because God is good and he knows the truth. Shalom.